Hear me out. Dragon Ball Evolution 2 should have happened just so we could have seen this character in live action. While it is true that Dragon Ball Evolution never deserved a sequel, the movie's follow-up should still have happened just so viewers could see one character in live action. Over a decade after its release, Dragon Ball Evolution is still touted as one of the worst live-action takes on anime, and rightfully so. With a Rotten Tomatoes score of 14%, the live-action film stands as a prime example of how disastrous an anime adaptation can be if its source material's legacy is not taken too seriously by a filmmaker. Although translating anime to the live-action medium has always been challenging, Dragon Ball Evolution proved that it takes a lot more than flashy visuals and bloated budgets to successfully bring an iconic anime to life. Given how Dragon Ball Evolution failed both critically and commercially, expanding its lore with a sequel naturally did not make sense. However, it is hard not to believe that its sequel would have potentially made the series far more exciting if it had featured one character from the original anime. Even when it comes to casting, Dragon Ball Evolution arguably made some questionable choices by whitewashing most characters from the original anime. However, I cannot help but believe that the movie series could have redeemed itself by making the right casting call for Vegeta. After Goku, Vegeta has always been the most likable character from the original anime franchise. Many, like me, would also argue that Vegeta's catharsis from being the most ruthless villain to becoming one of the most rootable heroes in the series makes his arc even more compelling than Goku's. Owing to this, I would have loved to see how Vegeta's story would have played out in live action and who would have portrayed him. Many talented actors like Andrew Koji, Henry Golding, and Louis Tan would have been perfect for the live-action role, and their involvement with the series as Vegeta would likely have made it more watchable. Unfortunately, since Dragon Ball Evolution 2 will never see the light of the day, viewers will never get to see a live-action version of Vegeta. Dragon Ball Evolution cared little about sticking to the complex lore established by the original anime and manga. Instead, it went its own way by touting the Saiyan race's great ape transformation as Uzaru and significantly changing many other aspects of Goku's origin story. The movie did not even mention Saiyans even once, leaving viewers questioning whether the alien race was even a thing in the live-action storyline. Without the existence of Saiyans, Dragon Ball Evolution 2 would have had to find other creative ways to introduce Vegeta as a primary character. By changing Vegeta's backstory and overarching purpose for arriving on Earth, the movie series would have further dug its own grave and established itself as an irredeemable anime live-action adaptation. This would have ended in disaster and forced the live-action series to drift further away from its source. Dragon Ball Evolution was heavily criticized for reimagining the original anime and manga as a silly coming-of-age high school story. Many were even let down by the fact that the movie could even get the spelling of Dragon Ball right. By changing Vegeta's backstory and overarching purpose for arriving on Earth, the movie series would have further dug its own grave and established itself as an irredeemable anime live-action adaptation. Even though the Saiyan saga is the seventh saga in the original franchise's overarching story, it played a crucial role in introducing Dragon Ball to Western viewers. Owing to this, a live-action Dragon Ball adaptation would likely have a wider appeal if it begins where Dragon Ball Z starts its narrative. Also, from a storytelling standpoint, the idea of a group of Earth-bound martial artists having a showdown with overpowered aliens like Vegeta would be fun to watch, even if the live-action adaptation does not have a lot to offer in terms of narrative depth and character development. Although the live-action would risk leaving important story beats behind if it directly began with the Saiyan saga, it could provide some exposition to quickly establish key elements of the Dragon Ball universe without dragging the plot down. If all works out well, Starting with the Saiyan saga would also allow the live action to progress to the Frieza saga, which perfectly raises the stakes for the franchise's heroes and makes room for some epic action sequences. However, after Dragon Ball Evolution's failure, it seems unlikely that another live-action adaptation of the franchise will happen soon.